After becoming the king of Saudi Arabia, Faisal ibn Abdulaziz conducted revolutionary reforms, and he used his position as king in order to challenge Western powers such as the United States and Israel. After coming to power, Faisal reduced his own salary and personal spending and focused on funding development projects and strengthening the economy. He used the massive oil wealth of the country to invest in modern infrastructure, and he invested in health, education, agriculture, transportation, industry, and the military. He constructed roads which connected Saudi Arabia to neighboring countries such as Kuwait, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. King Faisal also expanded Saudi shipping ports and established the Jazan and Yanbu shipping ports. He also invested in irrigation and drainage projects such as the Jazan Valley Dam and the Al Ahsa irrigation project, which prevented water from being wasted and allowed farmers to reuse excess water. Faisal also established the Agricultural Bank to provide loans to farmers and fishermen and to purchase the necessary equipment for them to be repaid in long installments without interest. King Faisal also invested in healthcare and opened the Faisal Specialized Hospital in Riyadh and invited doctors from the West to train local Saudi doctors. However, King Faisal did not want modernization to come at the expense of religion and culture. Therefore, he refused to adopt everything Western and only chose to adopt modern inventions that did not contradict Islam. In the late 1960s, the Shah of Iran sent a series of letters to King Faisal urging him to modernize Saudi Arabia. He stated, "Please, my brother, modernize. Open up your country. Make the schools mixed with women and men. Let women wear miniskirts. Open discos. Be modern. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee you will stay on your throne." In response to the Shah, King Faisal replied with the following letter: "Your Majesty, I appreciate your advice. May I remind you, you are not the Shah of France. You are in Iran. Your population is 90% Muslim. Please don't forget that." During his time as king, Faisal also established the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, which was dedicated to taking care of orphans, the elderly, disabled people, widows, and women without breadwinners. And he also made efforts to abolish slavery in Saudi Arabia. Besides his revolutionary internal policies, Faisal also formulated a radical foreign policy which challenged Western powers who were trying to exploit the Muslim world. He called for Islamic unity and established strong relations with Muslim countries. King Faisal established the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, which was created for the purpose of strengthening solidarity and cooperation between Islamic countries in the social, scientific, cultural, economic, and political fields. He also founded the Muslim World League and organized an international Islamic conference in 1965. He also introduced the King Faisal International Prize, which was an award given to Muslim scholars, intellectuals, activists, and scientists from across the globe in order to give international recognition to talented Muslims from around the world. King Faisal was also a strong supporter of the Palestinian cause. After Egypt's defeat against Israel in 1967, King Faisal sent $50 million of aid to help rebuild Egypt's economy and infrastructure. Despite the Egyptian President Jamal Abdel Nasser's public insults against King Faisal, Faisal put aside his differences and sent aid to Egypt in order to help his fellow Muslims. King Faisal also took part in the 1973 war against Israel and sent 3,000 soldiers to fight alongside the Egyptian and Syrian forces against the Israeli army. He also used oil as a weapon for the first time in the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict and cut off oil to Western countries in order to pressure the West to change its stance on Israel. Therefore, supporting Israel during the October 1973 war created a major economic crisis for Western countries. Eventually, the American President Kissinger became highly frustrated with King Faisal and threatened to take military action in order to end the oil embargo and take control of the oil fields. He addressed King Faisal and stated, "If Saudi Arabia doesn't lift the embargo, America will come and bomb the oil fields." King Faisal replied, "You are the ones who can't live without oil. We come from the desert, and our ancestors lived in tents and survived on dates and milk, and we can easily go back to living like that." The oil embargo of King Faisal crippled the American economy, which was dependent on foreign oil. However, King Faisal eventually lifted the oil embargo in March 1974 after pressure from multiple Western and Arab countries. As well as speaking out against Israel, King Faisal also called for the end of British rule in the Gulf, spoke out against French crimes in Algeria, and exposed the crimes of the Soviet Union in the Muslim world. King Faisal also gave financial assistance to Saudi writers and journalists who raised awareness about Islamic issues and exposed colonialism in the Muslim world. For example, King Faisal supported the writer known as Ahmed Abdul Ghaffur Attar, who wrote the book entitled The Zionist Conspiracy Against the World. And he also supported Ahmed Muhammad Jamal, who wrote the book entitled From Kashmir to Palestine. King Faisal printed thousands of copies of these books for free and distributed them across the Arab world. King Faisal also gave refuge to Muslim intellectuals who had been exiled from other countries. For example, he granted asylum to Muhammad Mahmud al-Sawaf, who was the leader of the Iraqi Muslim Brotherhood and had been exiled by the communist government in Iraq. King Faisal allowed Muhammad al-Sawaf to stay in Saudi Arabia and appointed him as a close government advisor. King Faisal rejected both capitalism and communism, and he also rejected the ideology of Arab nationalism, which was common in the Arab world at the time. Faisal rejected the idea of Arab superiority and nationalism, and he believed in the unity of Muslims from all races around the world. He appointed many non-Arab Muslims in high-ranking government positions. For example, King Faisal appointed the Pakistani economist known as Muhammad Umair Chapra as an economic advisor and granted him Saudi citizenship. He stated, "We in this honorable country pledge ourselves to be, with God's power and strength, servants of God's law and callers to God, cooperating with all our Muslim brothers in the corners of the earth to support this religion and to enforce God's law, to serve our people and spread justice in the whole world." King Faisal continued to maintain strong relations with Muslim countries, and he continued to speak out against Zionism, colonialism, and injustice until his death. Shortly before his death, King Faisal donated his large personal library to a public library for researchers in Riyadh.